we going low today, sis.
Since I did my Civil War video last week, where I talked about the continued escalation coming from the American left, things haven't changed all that much. They've just escalated even further. I'll give the rundown later in this video for those that may have missed it, but since 2015, the American left has been kicking things up a notch, and often that has come in the form of violent action against conservatives, Trump supporters, and others on the right wing. But before we get into that, I want you to think back to the height of the SJW era, and one of the most common refrains you heard from academia and the campus left. Words are violence, the left often said. Your speech is not free speech, it's an act of violence. This line of reasoning, printed in the New York Times, clumsily understood and then regurgitated by blue-haired and dreadlocked campus crazies, is what made leftists feel justified in responding to speech they perceived as violence with actual violence. Examples include, but are not limited to, the attempts to shut down Milo speeches on campuses across the country, attacks on Patriot prayer rallies across the Pacific Northwest, the punching of Richard Spencer, etc. The left has begun to believe that speech that offends them is an actual act of violence, and that they are then justified to respond to said speech with actual violence. This is a very important paradigm to understand, and you'll see that echo throughout the examples we'll be talking about today. And of course, free speech is not violence. Your speech is protected up until the point where you incite or direct violence against another person. And, much to the chagrin of Antifa, violence is not speech. In a civil society, you do not have a right to express yourself politically through the destruction of property or assault of people with whom you disagree. Now, this was a common theme in 2016 and 2017, but we still see examples today. On the 4th of July this year, a Congolese immigrant named Therese Patricia Okumu decided to climb the Statue of Liberty in order to protest evil Cheeto Man President Trump. Can you imagine for a moment the amount of hubris, or perhaps chutzpah, it takes to come to another country as an immigrant, then disrespect that country's national symbols on that country's Independence Day, in order to make a dumb political statement that also endangered the lives of New York City police officers that had to deal with her? In an interview, Therese, who is clearly a political scholar, said the following, quote, "Trump has wrecked this country apart. It is depressing. It is outrageous," she said. "I can say a lot of things about this monster, but I will stop at this. His draconian zero-tolerance policy on immigration has to go. In a democracy, we do not put children in cages, period." End quote. Here's an idea, bud. If you don't like it, you can go back to your own country and liberate yourself from Trump's evil oppression without harming anybody else. I don't quite have the words to describe the disgust I feel when I see people from across the world that think they're entitled to come to my country and tell us how things should be done. If you don't like it, you can go back. This is our country, not yours. And the statement about democracies is monumentally dumb, pardon the pun, for a few reasons. First of all, America is not a democracy. We are a republic. We're not ruled by the mob or the will of the masses. We have a constitutional republic. Secondly, there's nothing about democracy that necessarily precludes a democratic country from separating illegal aliens and the children they bring with them in order to protect the children and disincentivize child trafficking. We know already that a significant amount of these children being brought to the border are not actually the children of the people bringing them, and separation is the safest option for them in order to prevent child trafficking. But perhaps most interesting is the shirt that this La Criatura wore during her post-court interview. "White supremacy is terrorism," her shirt read. But is it? Well, white supremacy can be one of two things. One, it can be the belief that whites are superior in every way to every other race on Earth. I don't think there's anyone out there that actually believes that. Two, white supremacy can mean the belief that whites should rule over all other races on Earth. But in both cases, those are still just belief systems. They're ideas, not actions. And terrorism, as we know, is the use of violence for political means, which necessarily requires action. So, is white supremacy terrorism? No, it's not, unless it's accompanied by violence. And at this point, there are significantly more examples of anti-white and anti-Trump and anti-conservative bigotry and violence than white supremacist violence in modern-day America. Terrorism, again, is the use of violence for political means, which is why the Mexican guy that assaulted a teenager at a San Antonio restaurant, stealing his MAGA hat, technically committed a terrorist act. In case you missed this story, here's a quick review. Two teenagers were eating dinner at a restaurant in San Antonio when a grown man, 30-year-old Kino Jimenez, walked up to them and stole the MAGA hat from the teenager's head and threw a drink on him. theft, violence, and assault. Maybe this is what Maxine Waters was talking about when she told the left supporters to harass Trump administration officials in public. Chemo was arrested a few days ago and is apparently going to face felony charges. The funny thing is, even if he serves time, he'll still be able to find a job in the future. Someone will hire him and make sure he's financially taken care of. Contrast that with the dozens of nationalists, identitarians, and patriots that have been doxxed and fired simply for attending political events the left doesn't like. Thanks to leftist mob tactics, employers would rather hire a violent teenager assaulting leftist than a decent man with controversial political opinions. Let that one sink in. And perhaps the most enraging part of the story has been the response on Twitter, where thousands of leftists are celebrating this escalation and assault as well-deserved and something the teenager should have expected for wearing his MAGA hat in public. When you wear a MAGA hat, you represent all that it stands for. You gotta be prepared to wear what it comes with. We know when you go in your private settings, you practice that rhetoric. Hey, buy the ticket, take the ride. Nobody buys the innocent little me stuff, for real. If you're going to make a political statement with the clothing you wear, be prepared to face the consequences. Some people aren't going to like it. I'm seeing a trend here between suspected low IQ individuals and a belief that violence against people you don't like is justified because they have the wrong opinions. Perhaps this is why low IQ people are so attracted to pure mob rule democracy. Me have big tribe, my tribe have big rock. You tribe small, you tribe racist. My tribe hit your tribe with rock. My tribe takes small tribe things. We good guys, you racist. It's clear to me that there is a large subsect of the American populace that are simply not fit for civilized society. They have no basic respect for Western concepts like property rights, free speech, and discourse. Perhaps they'd be happier in societies where disputes are settled with violence and actions like this are justified. Luckily for them, those places exist, and they're called the entire third world. They're free to head on over there whenever they want, but they're not free to turn my first world country into a third world outpost. And just as I was about to finish writing the script for this video, a news story came across my Facebook feed about a man from Florida that was attacked and dragged behind a car for having a flag supporting the president in his front yard. Before we finish, let's look quickly at a clip from a video on this very topic by our great friends over at The Root.
Maxine Waters is doing her job, challenging the Trump administration's discriminatory policies, but because the passionate words come out of the mouth of a black woman, she's an easy target. And black women are the low ones on the totem pole. We are the disrespected, unprotected, and neglected.
Word to Malcolm X.
But the Auntie Maxine I know has no plans of being intimidated. Civility has existed on the side that's not saturated in white supremacy. But there's always a breaking point. Maxine's rallying cry isn't calling for violence, it's calling for change.
Well, it sounds great when you put it that way, doesn't it? Sorry, but no amount of spin can change the fact that what Maxine Waters was calling for was the harassment of Trump administration officials. And we can't ignore the fact that the leftist media has been complicit in the incitement of leftist political violence and the breakdown of civility in American politics at a rapid pace, especially during the Trump presidency. I would encourage everyone to take a look at a great article from John Nolte over at Breitbart, where he's compiled, as of now, 133 acts of media-approved violence and harassment against Trump supporters. That's an article I recommend reading through, sharing, and saving, because it will surely be very useful for debates in the future. As long as the left wants to continue encouraging political violence, things are only going to get worse for all of us, whether you're on the right, left, or center. It's not a future I want, but it's what I see happening right now. If you're watching this channel, you're definitely someone that cares about having a civil society, not a purely democratic mob rule where laws go unenforced, the Constitution doesn't matter, and people are all assaulting each other all over hurt feelings and political speech that they don't like. But that seems to be the direction the left is going down. This breakdown of civility seems to be something they're adamantly pursuing. And that's part of why I'm so concerned about them retaking political power. I know that my individual rights, my right to speech, for example, will go out the window in a society ruled by people like Therese Okumu, Maxine Waters, and Chemo Jimenez. As much as I disagree with their politics, I don't want to forcibly censor their speech. But unfortunately, they do not extend us on the right the same kindness. The breakdown in civility will continue until the IQ on the left improves.
Patricia's a naturalized citizen, thank God. Otherwise, I have no doubts that the system would try to deport her also.
Wow, what a waste. The poor children.